Hello, I'm Professor Bordway with MBA Architectural and MBA Educational Horizons. I represent both companies. In this recording, I wanted to talk about communication and documentation, which seems to be the two golden rules in pretty much any profession, but more specifically in architecture. Yeah, we have a lot of different types of clients, ones that are really um, anal, I guess, in regards to understanding the specifics of what's going on the project. And the others, end up trusting you to some degree, and you'll let me know what's going on if and when something happens, and so you've got two different ends of the spectrum there on types of clients, and so you'd have to learn how to adjust your level of communication and documentation to each type of client. Some clients want to be updated almost on a daily basis. What's going on with my project? I mean, they are spending the money, and we need to keep them in the loop, as they say, or notified progressively what's going on. And so, we have an email. It's titled "Just an Update." So we do that and send that out progressively to clients, just kind of give an idea of what's going on with the project and the updates and so on that are involved, with the project. So, we sometimes, we'll send that out once a week. Here's what's going on. I mean, even though nothing is going on, it's nice to even send something just to let them know that, you're working on the project, and it's progressing along. We're keeping it on budget and schedule and that type of thing. Usually we'll have in-house meetings and invite the client, to the meetings or their representative. The representative can be either usually a third-party person, that represents the owner in the situation where you can't get a hold of the owner. We call it the legal rep of the owner, not an attorney, but one that can legally represent them, make decisions on the owner's behalf, and keep the project rolling, so to speak. And so it's a matter of going through and keeping them up to date, inviting them to in-house meetings or consultant meetings or even meetings at the agency, and so on. So that way they're always in the loop, so to speak, to know what's going on with their project. I always find that the clients that are more challenging, and fault finding and finger pointing and whatever, that's the time that I kind of kick up my level of communication and documentation with them, so that way, they have little or less room to maneuver in trying to find fault or whatever, when you do that. All right. And of course, it's always good to have computer files and back up your files, probably at least once a week, if not more often, and even send it to off-site, locations as well, just in case something happens to your office. And and it's also good to have it in written form, binder form as well. And so basically, that's what we have is binders on the shelf next to our desks and so on. And every time I do an email, I print it out and I put it in the binder, as well. So in case my computer crashes, we don't have to all go home, we can still operate with the information in the binders as long as you keep the binders up to date. There's categories, contracts and correspondence and agency issues, and so on. So you have your different categories of binders in the binders as well. And of course you can do that with computer files as well, break it down that way. But it's nice to have both as a backup, okay, as far as documentation goes, that way, file documentation. And if you can properly track a project's history, timeline, with proper documentation, then that's also good as well, by date and so on, okay. And, good documentation could be also a form of, if you're in the construction phase, of course, keeping a log sheet of when you check the shop drawings or the documents, the revisions, and process the change orders and all of that, in the construction phase. Change orders only occur in the construction phase, by the way. It's revisions, if you want to use a term, that occurs before construction. Okay. And so, we don't have change orders in bidding or documents or phase or schematics or any of that. To track the effects of a project, there's only two effects really, which are revisions and clarifications. And so a clarification is supplemental data, adding to or taking away and not, it's not affecting time and or cost. So when you hear the word clarification, it means not affecting time and or cost. That's, additional information. But there's also a revision. Revision basically means affecting time and or cost in the form of an add or a deduct. So we call that a revision. And further definition of a revision in construction phase, we call that a change order. And so anyway, but having proper documents is important. Okay, and progressive sets of drawings as well is a good way to properly document the progress of a project. Sending the owner, I call it the big five. And you can do this basically. You can start off in the schematics as early as possible. DD, CD phase, the three phases. And the big five would be drawings, specifications, calculations, any reports, and the cost estimation. And so we'll put that package together at 20, 40, 60, 80% progress sets, send it off to the owner, and have the owner mark it up, sign it, scan email it back, or however they want to send it, just to confirm the fact that you're keeping the client up to date progressively, and there's no surprises. Sometimes, though, if a client starts approving it too quickly, it usually means they don't know what they're looking at. And so you have to watch out for that, And so it's a matter of making sure that the client is understanding the end product of what they are paying the architect for, okay, as well. So this is the reason why we get progressive approvals from them in the documents we generate to keep them informed of what's going on with the progress of their project. And they might say, well, can we move the wall over here? I really need more space and square footage in this area or something like that. So we're making adjustments and that type of thing as well, right? So documentation is important, and you gotta track it with the progress of a project. And we don't put projects on slow, okay? Either they're going to the schedule of the architect once it's in the architect's office, or they're on hold, as well. Any project that's on hold after 6 months, we just terminate it and start it over or continue it on where we left off later. But to keep a project kind of lingering, it just doesn't make sense. So usually if no activity after 6 months, then we terminate the contract and we'll have to pick it up from where we left off and continue on. You've got to watch out for these lingering things as well. Don't you remember about 3 years ago? No. So it's a matter of after 6 months, it's pretty much a dead project. So anyway, documentation is important. Okay, and progressive sketches and drawings, written and graphic data. Okay, and you can PDF it to a client if you want, or take pictures and send the pictures, or physical drawings. However the client wants to see the progress data. Okay, and so the documentation is important, and then also there's communication, and in communication, verbal communication, we nowadays we can end up, just in the office having a progressive Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever format you use, Skype or FaceTime or whatever it happens to be. It's a matter of, you can do it most of the time in the office, but sometimes clients like the in-person touch as well. So then you have to go and have a physical meeting somewhere in their office or your office, or even at the job site or whatever it happens to be, to kind of keep them up to date on what's going on, and having a progressive meeting. Okay. I mean, your first meeting with the client is going to kind of lay out the groundwork. About 3 days prior to that, I send them a list of all the things they need to bring with them in written form, which would be their budget, their schedule, level, quality, program criteria, construction manager requirements, things of that sort. Let's get those things out of the way right now. Let's understand them and let's make them realistic. I mean, if the budget is not realistic, it needs to be realistic. If the schedule is not realistic, it needs to be realistic. Sometimes clients will come to you in April or May and expect you to do a full school and have it up and operating by August, or something crazy. And so you have to kind of, in my logic, in this profession, I try to do win-win as much as possible. It's like, even though it's unrealistic, how can we make it a win-win or close to what you want, the client wants, right? As opposed to, get out of here and whatever. And so it's, so you talk with them about the possibility of, can you pay the architect additional funds to accelerate the document stage? Can you go to pre-bid? Can you go and pay, is it possible to accelerate the agency by paying them an acceleration fee? Because some agencies are open for that. So you can get a faster plan check, things of that sort. Once you get under construction, then can we go fast track versus CPM, and and that type of thing as well. But there are some ways that you can accelerate the project, as long as you're not making mistakes because of the speed. So you have to watch out for that. So you have to deal with real experienced people when you're fast tracking a project, anywhere from pre-design all the way through to the end of construction. All right. So, but verbal communication is very important, and so we want to make sure that we've adjusted our level of communication to the type of client that we're dealing with. I mean, the best communicator that I've ever dealt with was one that knew how to do that, and they talk their same language, and they're on the same page and wavelength, and and so on. So it's a matter of communicating the way the client would like to hear you, talk their language, so to speak. But communication and documentation, and then what about on their side as well? How are they communicating? I don't usually wait for someone to call me. Usually, I'll end up bugging them. I'll end up picking up the phone or the computer, or whatever, and contacting them if I have a question or an issue or something like that. You can overdo and underdo everything, and that goes with communication and documentation as well. But I'd much rather be on the overdo side than the underdo side, so to speak. So, and so in communicating, for example, on a project the other day that when it's under construction, I won't wait for the contractor to call me. I'll call them. How you doing? What went on today, and that type of thing. And 9 times out of 10, we'll have issues to resolve. And sometimes people have a problem picking up the phone or making contact with the parties they need to talk with, So I don't wait for that. I don't have the ego thing or whatever. It's like, I'm just pick up the phone and, hey, how you doing? And so I always find that that's kind of staying out ahead of it as far as trying to prevent this communication block or lack of communication. Because if you drop the ball, usually surprises happen, And so it's a matter of following through and communicating properly with, and knowing all the people involved. We have a directory sheet, once we start a project. You got the owner and the architect, of course, and all the consultants, architects, consultants, owners, consultants. I mean, we only consult with the people inside the building. The structural, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, fire suppression, communication devices, consultants. Everyone outside the building contracts with the owner. Soils, civils, landscape, marketing, feasibility consultants, all of them we have to communicate and coordinate with them and make sure we're coordinating their data into our data, properly. But we're not responsible for the client's consultants as far as, schedules and fee and accuracy and things of that sort. That's kind of really up to the individual, consultant as well to make sure that they have accurate information. But I will pick up the phone and talk with them as well, the owner's consultants, and make sure that they're on track with what they need to be, or at least talk with them a little bit to see where they're at with their schedule. I mean, by putting the civil engineer documents into my documents, and they're going to contract with the owner because that's outside the building. So when can we expect those? And can we get a copy of the topo survey and all of that, and see where we're at with contours, and so I'm coordinating with them, right? So communication and documentation is very important, and keep in mind that no response is not a response. Okay, it's called a lazy non-professional, actually. It's like it's like, well, I sent them an email and hopefully they got it and understood it, and I'm on to something else. It's like, what we do basically is we'll send them an email, but then we pick up the phone and follow up with it, and it's like, did you get the email, and do you have any questions, and that type of thing. Okay, good. Just want to make sure that you got it, and so on. Then a copy goes into our file, of course, that type of thing. But if somebody emails me and I don't respond, I mean, that's not a response. Some people think that's a response. It's like, no, not really. So you have to make sure that you're responding properly as far as communication and documentation goes. Okay, and so you can over document as well. I mean, in an office I had a bay buddy on the left and in the right, the open office design, and this person over on one side, not enough information on the documents. So when they went out to bid, it's like all these contingencies, and such. And then on the other side of me is like, it's like that guy over noted the documents, scared the contractors, so the projects came in over budget, and that type of thing. And so you can overdo and underdo everything. And so it's a matter of trying to find the golden mean, as I think Aristotle said, and trying to get the happy medium in there as well, as far as proper communication and documentation. Okay, and again, have backups. That's very important as well. It's like a couple of times your computer isn't going to end up crashing, and then do you have like Time Machine or whatever that continuously tracks your projects? I mean, we have 8 tera hookups to our computers, and we're backing them up, all the time, and then sending them off site, and as well to try to back it up that way as well. Because when your computer crashes, and it has in the past, then you go back and you rely on the hosting company to, sometimes you have to agree with them that they're doing a 24-hour backup on your websites and all your files as well and such, and that type of thing. So backing up documentation is very important. And then also, if a certain situation occurs, you have to get on it right away before the fire grows anymore, So verbal response and document response. Okay, those are the 2 actions that an architect should take. It's like, first pick up the phone. Okay, I understand this is the problem we have. We're working on solutions. I'll get back to you in a few hours or tomorrow or something like that, right? And let the client know that you're aware of it, and you're working on it. If you're dealing with clients with real can't handle stress, a recommendation would be to come up with a solution and then call them, instead of that's the problem, but we don't know how to solve it, or we're working on it, or something like that. They need answers right away. If you're dealing with inexperienced clients or stressful type of clients, and so you have to kind of keep them up to date, like I said, progressively, those type of clients, and make sure that they understand exactly what's going on. Sometimes what's in their head is not what's in your head. I mean, when you sign on to do construction administration observation phase, they're thinking, oh, you're going to be out there every day or every other day, and then in your mind, you're basically saying, well, no, I'll probably be out there once a month, and so That's why it's good to spell that out in a contract, how often you're going to be, and any visits thereafter will be billed on an hourly basis, because you might be there only an hour, you don't want to bill them for the whole day. And it's good to have proper contracts, which is documentation as well, to reflect scope of work and how do you handle additional services, and fee schedule and all that, that needs to go in a contract. And so proper communication and documentation, you will find that as you increase that, you stay out of trouble more and more. Trouble kind of has a tendency to fizzle out a little bit. So it's like life insurance, if you take a $500 million whatever policy on yourself, you'll probably live to be about 200 or 300 years old in perfect health. It's like, so anyway, it's a matter of keeping good files and communicating and documenting and dealing with the different types of clients. The easy ones anybody can get along with. The challenging ones are ones you have to take on and keep an eye on. And of course, there's the general contractor, the superintendent, the construction manager as well. Keep in mind that a construction manager is not an owner's representative either. The first thing I say in a CM meeting basically is you realize you're a consultant of the owner and I can't take direction from you. So I just want to get that cleared out of the way, because sometimes CMs think that they can give direction to the architects, and then we're taking direction from the wrong people. And the owner needs to be educated on that as well. They've been working with this CM for the last 30 years, and they know, and that CM knows exactly what the owner wants, and they're trying to give that direction to the architect, and the architect should not be taking that direction from the CM. The owner's representative should not be the construction manager, the general contractor, the architect. It needs to be a third-party person. Okay, and so if the owner can't be giving direction directly to the architect, then it needs to come from their legal representative as well. So you're always having to sift through the levels of communication, make sure the right people are talking with the right people, and sometimes I can't talk with certain people as well. And here's the other direction. It's like you get a call from a future user or occupant of a building and trying to give you direction. And we have to say, I'm sorry, we can only take direction from the owner, the one that signed my contract. And so we have to take a look at that and redirect that. Sometimes the owner will end up calling one of my consultants directly, and now I'm out of the loop. I don't know what they discuss, So I tell all my consultants in my kickoff meeting, along with give me your big five at 20, 40, 60, 80, and stay within the limits of the code. Don't step outside the limits of the code. But I also say that if you receive calls from the owner or any of their consultants directly, then send them over to me first, and then I'll set up a conference call or a meeting or whatever with all of us in the meeting, so we know what's going on, and so we have to take a look at that and make sure that right people are talking with right people. I go onto the job site, and the subs will say, "Are you the architect? Oh, well, come on over here." And it's like I have to go the other way. I say, "Talk with the GC. I'll talk with them later." I can't talk with them. I did it a long time ago, and then the subs will turn it around what I said. Well, that's what the architect told us to do, and that wouldn't have happened if I didn't go over there. And so, so proper communication is important. Who to speak to, who not to, when to speak to them, when not to speak to them. That type of thing is important. And keeping everyone in the loop that you need to, appropriate parties, right? And keeping your documents up to date, and courtesy copying everyone, involved, your supervisors or principals if you're a project architect or a project manager working on projects and such as well. Keeping the principals in the loop of what's going on. They read those, courtesy copies that you sent them, showing the progress of the project and what's going on with that as well. They don't want to be out of touch with the project. Everyone needs to be on the same page. So there's not expectancy going on, expecting something that's not going to happen, misunderstanding. I mean, how do architects get in trouble? Usually two reasons, they say. One is misunderstandings in verbal communication or documentation, and the other is personality conflict, believe it or not. I mean, when I was working in a large firm, if I had a personality conflict with the client, I'd basically swap projects with my partner, bay partner, over there, and he'll give me his project, and he can take mine, and instead of risking a lawsuit for the firm just because I'm not getting along with the owner, or whatever it happens to be. Anyway. All right, so communication and documentation is very important, and right people, talking with the right people, keeping your documentation up to date, the timeline history of the project as well. I mean, here's a good question to check your files. It's like when a client calls you up and asks, that change order number 15 that occurred like 3 months ago, item number 4 under that. Can you explain that a little more to me? Okay. Now the clock is ticking. How long will it take you to pull that information up and get that answer to the owner? Okay. Anyway, so keep good communication and documentation. When in doubt, spell it out. Don't leave it out, right? And hopefully you stay out of trouble and projects will run a little smoother. All right. You take care, and then I'll talk to you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.